Tonight, out of isolation and demanding answers, claims there was no proper testing before a hotel lockdown was lifted. Exclusive details just ahead. Plus, an isolation tragedy. A man dies while being held in quarantine. On board the Mercy flight that's delivered dozens with the virus straight into Melbourne. Victoria's infection rate continues to fall, bringing new hope. Footy may be back sooner. And celebrating Easter Sunday in a pandemic. Church services forced to go online, and the Queen's new message urging us to keep the faith.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Mike Amor starts now.
Good evening. It's been an Easter Sunday as we've never known it, dominated by the corona lockdown. There have been just 3 new cases overnight, but that hasn't stopped the state of emergency being extended for another 4 weeks. A Mercy flight with as many as 80 infected Aussies from South America has arrived in Melbourne, while a man has died during quarantine at a city hotel. Travellers who have just been released from Crown have criticised health authorities, claiming there's been no proper testing.
After 2 weeks locked in a room, freedom and fresh air go very well together. 450 hotel quarantined people were released today into waiting taxis. Stephen Stoke and wife Mina have to drive themselves home to Brisbane.
It's actually a bit harder than people realise. I'd rather have been in a tent for sure rather than staying in one room with no air for 2 weeks.
At another Melbourne hotel, a quarantined man has died. He did not have coronavirus, and police say his death is not suspicious, but has raised concerns about welfare monitoring.
So does that death require a reassessment of the quarantine process, do you believe?
No, I think that it's really important that we send our best wishes to the family of that person. But I'd say to you that the systems we have in place are being reviewed every single day.
The Premier claims those in hotel quarantine are looked after, even if they're locked in.
Every person that's in quarantine has a daily health check.
There's no checks. No. It makes you wonder why we were there.
The incompetence shown from start to end has been incredible.
Those in quarantine are told they'll be sent home at the end of the 14 days, even if they have coronavirus.
You know, you'd be sent home even if you were sick. That just killed me.
It's an excuse, I think, to give money to the hotels. I just think we've been kind of a pawn in a game to make sure the hotel economy keeps going.
People are being well cared for, but it is challenging. I don't think anyone wants to be in a hotel room with very limited opportunity for exercise.
And since the death of that man in his hotel room, we're learning tonight of a change of heart from authorities. They are finally allowing some quarantined guests out of their hotels to get some fresh air. At one hotel, it's in 10-minute blocks in a barricaded area supervised by security staff. One woman telling me it is the first time she's had fresh air and any sort of human contact in almost 2 weeks. Mike?
Blake, thank you. 80 coronavirus-riddled Australians are tonight holed up in Melbourne hotel rooms after being rescued from cruise ship hell. They arrived on a Mercy flight to safety as the Premier moved to reassure Victorians he's learnt from Sydney's Ruby Princess disaster.
No one could afford to ignore the safety demonstration on this flight.
We have to wear a mask for the whole time though, which is interesting.
Crew members in protective clothing and cabins segregated on board the coronavirus Mercy flight from Uruguay.
I've never been so glad to come home. The thought of being in isolation in a hospital in a country that doesn't speak English is just, it's so scary.
After being cooped up on a cruise ship, Rowena Hamilton and her husband Wayne were on board the flight. She has COVID-19, but he doesn't. Now in quarantine, the couple's experience highlights the mystery surrounding the virus.
Well, Wayne and I have been in a room for 22 days. When did I pick it up? I don't know when I picked it up.
112 cruise ship passengers landed in Melbourne early this morning. It's believed around 80 of them have the virus. Heavy protection was needed for those who welcomed them on the tarmac. Most travellers were put on buses to go into hotel quarantine. One passenger went straight to hospital.
Each person in quarantine is having daily health checks with a nurse, and they will be having a health check on their way out to determine that they are well and able to be released into the community.
It's the biggest known mass arrival of travellers with COVID-19 in Victoria, but the authorities are determined to prevent this from being our Ruby Princess moment.
There is no comparison.
Why is that?
Well, because these people were tested, these people were known to be positive, these people went straight from the airport to a hotel. None of these people have been let into the community.
The travellers were last tested a week ago. Any new positive cases will be added to Victoria's total. The state is prepared to receive more Mercy flights. At least 2 Australians were left behind, too unwell to make the journey home.
Cameron Bowe is at Ridges on Swanston Street for us tonight. And Cam, health authorities there are taking no chances.
Mike, we've seen firsthand just how dynamic this situation is. The condition of at least one traveller has become more serious. They've been hospitalised after being put into quarantine, and this just highlights the importance of the ongoing testing and treatment as part of the quarantine program. Mike.
Cam, thank you. The drop in infection rates has footy fans hoping the AFL season could return sooner than first thought, but we're being urged to be patient, with warnings fans may have to wait until next year before being allowed back.
From the deafening roar of the grand final,
the Tigers are premiers for the 12th time in their history,
to silence in round 1. And now an agonising wait for footy fans, but we're being urged to resist an early restart.
If this virus breaks out again because we become impatient to return to norm, we could be doing ourselves a great deal of damage.
The NRL has flagged a May 28 return.
I think that's a very silly and stupid decision.
I know New South Wales Health has been dealing with the Rugby League. My personal view is I think it's probably premature to be planning things at the moment, but that's a matter for New South Wales.
The AFL still hopeful of being back in the second half of the year.
If we can review restrictions in June, the boys can be back there training late June, early July for a start in August, which would allow us to complete another 16 games in the finals before Christmas.
7 News contacted AFL officials today. They say their stance on restarting the season hasn't changed and they'll be guided by the National Health Department.
Everyone wants to get our state back to something approaching normal, and footy's a really big and important part of the way that our state functions.
At the moment, our state is functioning on a tight leash. Police have ramped up their Easter crackdown, issuing 92 more fines in the past 24 hours, worth more than $150,000. 9 people were busted in an Airbnb in Southbank, 7 were playing a soccer game in Mill Park, and 9 were fined for playing rugby in Wyndham Vale. Despite the low number of new cases, the Premier is taking no chances, extending Victoria's state of emergency for at least another 4 weeks.
Our strategy is fundamentally working. The alternative, of course, if we look at places like New York and some parts of Europe, is not something that we want to see repeated here.
Tegan Dolling, 7 News.
As the death toll linked to the Ruby Princess grows, so does the anxiety and frustration on board. 7 News has spoken to crew members locked in their cabins aboard the ship, unsure of when they will see home or where they will end up.
Inside the ship, everyone wants to get off. COVID-19 hotspots taped off, red zones clearly marked. Those on board the Ruby Princess are usually spoilt with tropical views. Its current location in stark contrast. 7 News has been in contact with a number of crew members still stranded on the ship. Most are terrified to speak out in fear of losing their jobs. But this was one text message exchange from today. Lockdown is now stricter than ever. It's strictly forbidden for anyone to leave their cabin. Armed guards patrol the quayside, and we really do feel like prisoners caught up in this political mess. Restrictions reinforced over the ship's PA system.
Nobody is to leave their stateroom under any circumstances. This evening we will deactivating all stateroom and crew cabin keycards.
The final destination for those on board still uncertain. We have another 6 days to comply with this phase of quarantine. Rumour has it that we may have to leave Australia and sail across the Pacific to US waters.
Obviously, we're not going to send that ship out to sea if there are people who need further medical attention. It's not going to happen.
This is the only way for our vessel to return to full health and leave Australia to be reunited with our families.
Out of the more than 1,000 crew still on board, 52 are infected with COVID-19. 16 deaths and more than 600 cases are now attributed to the one ship. The latest casualty, a 74-year-old man who died at Royal Adelaide Hospital overnight. The Ruby Princess is still the subject of a police investigation. So, if she does set sail this week, police sources have confirmed that the investigation will continue long after she's gone. A leaked video suggests the isolation is starting to affect some on board. Peter Fegan, 7 News.
More than 1,000 people are being forced into quarantine after an outbreak of COVID-19 in 2 Tasmanian hospitals. 35 health workers have tested positive to coronavirus on the northwest coast. All staff and their households must self-isolate for 14 days. Both hospitals will be shut down while they undergo a thorough clean. All 50 US states are tonight under a disaster declaration for the first time in history as the country's coronavirus death toll surges to a horrifying new high. America now has more COVID-19 deaths than anywhere in the world.
America's virus tragedy, now the worst in the world. More than 2,000 deaths in a day. The total toll, more than 20,000. Not just numbers, faces, like 21-year-old Cody Lister.
He is proof positive that this virus does not discriminate against age.
In hardest hit New York, more signs the peak has been reached. The number dying daily, steady.
It is stabilizing at an horrific rate. These are just incredible numbers.
We're still seeing sick patients, so it's not over yet.
Hospitals overwhelmed, but many of the field hospitals set up for a surge remain near empty. This one in Seattle dismantled without treating a single patient. Some doctors complaining of red tape as anger rises. In Philadelphia, a COVID confrontation. Police drag a man off a bus for not having a mask, though there's no law saying he has to wear one. 3 weeks now since New Yorkers were told to stay at home. Sometimes the only people you see are those who don't have one. With concerns about the growing number of virus cases in the city's shelters and the deaths that have followed, thousands of New York's homeless will now be given hotel rooms so they too can isolate safely. As churches here prepare for Easter Sunday, a showdown looms. Some pastors planning gatherings.
The gospel tells us to be courageous, but not to be foolish.
Tom Hanks' first official appearance since his coronavirus diagnosis.
Now, the folks in Australia are fantastic in every way.
Hosting a returned Saturday Night Live.
Tommy Tim Tam, what's the right proper way to get a daily dose of your Vegemite? All right, enough of that.
In New York, Paul Kadak, 7 News.
The Queen has released a special Easter broadcast for the very first time in her 68-year reign, vowing coronavirus will be beaten. The message of hope also urged people across the Commonwealth to stay home to protect others.
Drawing on her own personal faith to again reassure a nation.
This year, Easter will be different for many of us, but by keeping apart, we keep others safe. But Easter isn't cancelled. Indeed, we need Easter as much as ever.
With churches closed on the most important weekend in the Christian calendar, the 93-year-old decided to write a message, recording the audio in a room by herself at Windsor Castle, her second public address about the global pandemic.
We know that coronavirus will not overcome us. As dark as death can be, particularly for those suffering with grief, light and life are greater.
That sentiment of hope is something so many people, families and hospital workers need right now, with the UK's death toll close to 10,000. The latest victims include nurses and an 11-year-old child. At a Muslim cemetery in London, they're being forced to bury up to 10 bodies at a time.
That the coronavirus and the COVID-19 it is something really
real. It is not something that we should treat lightly.
The Prime Minister, who spent his 7th night in hospital, says he owes his life to the medics who cared for him in ICU. Now the father-to-be is making good progress.
May the living flame of the Easter hope be a steady guide as we face the future.
In London, Sarah Greenolch, 7 News.
Europe Bureau Chief Hugh Whitfeld is in London for us tonight. And Hugh, there's an update on the British Prime Minister's battle with the disease.
Mike, reports here Boris Johnson came close to death during his 3 nights in intensive care here at St Thomas's Hospital, and all his staff could do was pray for his survival. Fiancée Carrie Simmons was writing to him daily, including in one note a scan of their unborn baby due in the middle of the year. Downing Street now says the Prime Minister is, quote, making very good progress as his colleagues try to stem a spiralling death toll across the UK. Mike.
Hugh, thank you. Traditionally, it's a day for family celebrations, but this Easter Sunday we've been forced to find new ways to mark the day. Those who usually go to church instead powered up their computers.
An attempt at normality in troubled times.
Dad, behind you! That one?
That one, my darling. Good boy. Our eerily empty roads, a reminder of no family gatherings with grandparents. No packed churches either.
It's Resurrection Sunday.
Families had front pew seats as they gathered in homes around screens to celebrate the resurrection remotely.
Thanks be to God.
Like most of us, the church embracing all things virtual, with Mass beamed and streamed on various platforms.
Wherever in the world you are, those of you who are live streaming, we unite ourselves at this moment with the Lord who offers us the gift of his resurrection.
The traditional service was transformed into an ultra-modern Mass.
I suspect Zoom meetings will be much more a part of life going forward.
Above all, a message of hope.
It will be up to us to make sure that new normal is a better normal.
Donated meals were gratefully received by ICU doctors and nurses at Frankston Hospital, who've dealt first-hand with COVID-19 patients on ventilators.
To all sit down and have a hot meal, it kind of brings everyone together and it boosts our morale, and it's really, really nice.
This is the beginning. We've got winter, we've got flu season, it's a long way to go.
As has been the case every day since the start of the COVID-19 crisis, health workers have remained at the front line every day, including Easter Sunday. It has been an Easter at a distance and with a difference.
Rise up in the light of life.
But one that will be remembered by families spending more time with each other in an effort to keep others safe.
We will get over this, Australia.
Karen O'Sullivan, 7 News.
Jackie Felgate joins me now with a look ahead to sport. And Jack, the Magpies can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, hello, Mike. Collingwood hasn't lost any motivation during the shutdown. Hear their premiership plans soon. Also, while Dan Ricciardo takes time out on the farm, it's chaos back home for Renault. The Aussie caught up in the carnage at the Indy Cars, and the surfing prodigy who could be considered the luckiest athlete in isolation. Plenty more of that coming up later in sport.
How did you do that?
I know,
Thanks,
amazing.
Jack. OK, see you soon. George Pell has delivered his first interview since his release, and it's causing a firestorm. Up next, his view on church child abuse that has his critics fuming. Sunshine family's Easter disaster as their home goes up in flames. Big trouble at Big W, a fight over baby formula. And tributes to a star, the death of might and power.
Easter is upon us, and boy, it's certainly going to be a different way to celebrate Easter than we're used to.
It doesn't mean that we can't celebrate. The meaning is still the same.
Make sure you spread the love. Spread heaps and heaps of love.
But whatever you do, make sure you keep the Easter eggs to yourself.
Share the Easter spirit.
And keep the eggs to yourself.
Share the Easter spirit.
And share the love.
But don't share my chocolates.
Remember, we're going to get through this.
We're going to come through this.
We are all in this together. You are not in this alone.
Stay safe, Australia.
Take good care of yourselves.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter!
Telstra's smart modem cleverly switches Wi-Fi frequencies when you're further away.
for a strong connection to maximise your range. Experience better Wi-Fi with Telstra.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Play now in-store at thelot.com or on the Lot app.
Coronavirus is changing the way we live, work and communicate. Changes can be hard, so it's vital to take care of ourselves and others. Prioritising your mental health is important. To help, there are some things you can do, like eating well, keeping active, talking with family, friends and neighbours via phone or video calls, and making a new daily routine. Together, we can help stop the spread and stay healthy. Visit australia.gov.au to learn more. Authorised by the Australian Government, Canberra.
Here's something extra from Hyundai. Right now, across Hyundai's petrol and diesel SUV range, get a generous cash back on the SUV style, performance and safety features you need. Because right now, we know a little goes a long way.
Goodbye grind. Hey timber shine. Refresh does the trick. A deep clean, a brand new sheen. It's gorgeous and it's schmick. For refresh timber and more. Refresh with Electro Dry. Refresh. Electro Dry. Electro Dry.
A ticket in the MS Dream Home Lottery is more than a chance to win one of two $1.5 million grand prizes. Every ticket sold helps us support thousands of Victorians living with multiple sclerosis. People like Lydia.
Through MS Limited, I access NDIS support. That just gave me the freedom to not worry about it. It was great.
You too can make a difference. Get your tickets today.
Our faces can be strong, but also really sensitive. With vitamin B3 and SPF 30, revitalise and protect. With QV Face Moisturising Day Cream, Australia's #1 facial moisturiser for sensitive skin.
Hey mate, sign here.
Sign here.
Fast track your shop with Repco Home Delivery.
Tasty, affordable and delicious. What's for dinner in the next break with Coles?
We have some breaking news for you now, and 750 Qantas staff members have been ordered into isolation with ongoing fears of an airport cluster of COVID-19. 34 Qantas staff from South Australia have already tested positive to coronavirus. The airline giant fears more Adelaide employees could be next, so management have emailed all staff, forcing them to self-isolate for 14 days. In his first formal interview since his release from prison, Cardinal George Pell has admitted he was ashamed of the Catholic Church for the way it handled child sex abuse. The Cardinal also infuriated victims and their families by claiming he's been unfairly portrayed as unsympathetic to them.
Cardinal Pell was adamant he'd fought hard against church child abuse.
I totally condemn those sorts of activities and the damage that it's done to people. And I've seen the damage that it's done to people. I've read horrific accounts.
He was offended. Campaigners always accused him of siding with the church, not victims.
One of the things that grieves me is the suggestion that I'm anti-victim or not sufficiently sympathetic.
Well, I thought it was laughable when I heard that. I think there's been a total lack of compassion.
When George Pell was Archbishop of Melbourne, Chrissy Foster and her late husband Anthony told him their two daughters were molested by a parish priest.
He just was not interested. He didn't listen. He jumped down our throats.
The Premier repeated his call for the federal government to release sections of the Royal Commission into Child Abuse, originally suppressed because of George Pell's appeal. He would not comment on the High Court decision directly, but made his feelings clear.
There are many people who moved predator priests and brothers around working class parishes for decades. They knew what they were doing, and they will need to go to their maker, knowing that.
Cardinal Pell admits he's ashamed of his church.
There are two levels. One is the crimes itself, and then the treating it so inadequately for so long.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
A family has been forced from their burning house in Sunshine. It's believed an electrical fault in the roof sparked the blaze, which spread through the kitchen.
Unfortunately, the house has received quite extensive damage.
2 people have been taken to hospital. There's been an ugly clash at a Melbourne shopping centre over baby formula. It happened at the Lilydale Big W as a pair tried to buy a number of tins. Social distancing was forgotten as another shopper took them on.
You want us back?
Security officers escorted the man and woman out of the store. Racing has lost one of its most beloved characters, legendary stayer Might and Power. One of only 2 horses to win both the Caulfield and Melbourne Cups and a Cox Plate, he enjoyed a new level of fame in retirement.
This was the race that turned a great horse into a champion.
What a win, he's won it by 7 lengths.
Might and Power went on to claim the coveted Cups double.
Might and Power into Remus, they hit it, oh it's close.
By a nose. He's the only horse to have led from start to finish in both races.
Oh, he was a beast, mate. He was a monster. He was a big, strong boy. He was as wide as a tank across the front and as wide as a bus across the back, and he had a heart like a lion.
A year later, he joined Rising Fast as the only horses in history to win both Cups and a Cox Plate.
The earth starts to rumble. Might and Power takes a Cox Plate a length and a half.
For me, Might and Power sits just below the gods. And the gods are Winx and Farlap and Carbine and Tullap and a couple of others like Black Caviar.
Might and Power's feats on the track place him amongst racing's all-time greats, but it was in retirement here at Living Legends that he gained a whole new legion of fans. He featured on a postage stamp and was a much-loved part of Melbourne Cup parades. He even enjoyed the odd beer. Might and Power died from a colic attack in the early hours of this morning. He was 26. Jacqueline Felgate, 7 News.
Melina Saris joins us now for an early look at the weather. And Mel, the strong winds and showers finally eased overnight.
They did, Mike, and the city didn't record any rainfall today. There were just light falls recorded near Mount Dandenong. The 24-hour rainfall totals to 9 o'clock this morning left just 2.4 millimetres in the city gauge. The western suburbs received less than 3 millimetres, while the eastern suburbs like Monbulk and Warrandyte had between 2 and 8 millimetres. The southeastern suburbs had the highest 24-hour totals. Burwood received 20 millimetres and Heathmont had 19. Temperature-wise over the suburbs today, it was pretty much 15 degrees right across the board with southwesterly winds. Scoresby and Yarra Glen were 14 and it didn't get above 16 degrees all day in Mount Dandenong. After a few gloomy days, it is warming up. I'll have all those details after sport. Mike.
We all need some good news. Thanks, Mel. There's a lot to learn in lockdown and the cost of online courses is being slashed. What's on offer is next. Plus, secret children. The 2 boys, Julian Assange, fathered while being held in the Ecuadorian embassy. The boom in internet shopping from home, an important warning. And isolation tips from one of the world's most isolated locations. Lessons from Antarctica.
Next on 7, the Gold Coast Penthouse is revealed.
Good job, Mumsy.
So proud of us.
The final Penthouse reveals are here.
I love this. Really sophisticated.
This is stunning.
Who will get their home fully renovated?
You will receive a home renovation.
The Gold Coast Penthouse final reveals. House rules coming up next on 7.
Hi guys, Michael Weldon here, back for another instalment of Cole's What's for Dinner. Now tonight it's all about comfort food. I know we're all locked up at home in isolation, we're not sort of getting out there a lot, but this dish can transport us to the pub. We're going to go that favourite of every Aussie, the classic chicken schnitzel. This is how I do it. The first thing you need to do is flavour your breadcrumbs. So here I've got some panko breadcrumbs. You can use whatever breadcrumbs you have. What I do from there is add lots of flavouring. So I've got some Parmesan cheese I'm going to grate in there. And then I've got some thyme leaves I just picked off the stalk here. And I love chilli, so some chilli flakes. We've got just a little pinch of salt because we've got that parmesan. And then we just need to mix this together. Then we pour that out onto our plate. Now this is what I call a crumbing station. So we've got flour at one end, panko or our breadcrumbs at the other, and then our eggs in the middle. Now, we've got chicken breasts here. You could use chicken thighs. I'm gonna wear some gloves just because we're dealing with chicken. And I've got two things I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna cut our breasts in half. That looks really good. And then I've got a meat mallet here. You could use a fry pan or just something heavy with a handle that you can sort of bash your chicken down. We want our chicken to be nice and thin, a nice even thickness all over. So into our flour we go with our chicken, and you go into your egg, and that's when you bring your wet hand back in, and you go back to your dry hands on the outside of our chicken. And there you go, have a look at that. Homemade chicken schnitzel in a couple of minutes. So our schnitzels are made, now it's time to make a quick accompaniment to go with them. All we're gonna do is just thinly slice all these crunchy things and make a really quick slaw. So at home, you can use whatever you have lying around. Some mayonnaise, it's a little bit of olive oil, just to dress everything, and with clean hands we give that all a nice mix together. Just a little bit of lemon, just take a cheek off, squeeze over the top just to add that little bit of sharpness to our slaw. All right, so we've made our slaw, our schnitzels are crumbed, ready to go. I've got some oil on here in a pan on a high heat. Now we're gonna chuck in our schnitzels. It's gonna take about 2.5 minutes to cook on each side, heat on a medium-high. That bubbling's perfect. Once it's nice and golden brown, take it out, dry it off on paper towel. We'll season it with sea salt, and then we're ready to eat schnitzel. And there you have it, guys. That is my winner chicken schnitzel for dinner. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay safe, stay tuned for more Coles What's for Dinner. Happy eating.
You need to get out.
The unmissable season final.
If I leave, you die. Exhale!
Of The Good Doctor, Tuesday on 7.
Fast-track university courses are being offered online to help people boost their skills in isolation. The costs have been slashed with new federal government funding.
A plan to close the skills gap while social distancing.
To enable people, rather than binging on Netflix, to be able to binge on studying.
Slashing the price for online short courses, allowing people to learn from their lounge.
If life gives you lemons, you make lemonade.
20,000 places to retrain in areas of national priority: nursing and allied health, teaching, counselling, IT and science.
Areas where we need people.
And another $100 million in grants, providing cash flow for hard-hit unis.
If the detail stacks up, then we will of course welcome any steps to support a really key sector.
And despite infection rates falling, social distancing appears set to remain the new normal for this year at least.
I think that the Australian people are prepared for restrictions for as long as it takes, to be honest.
The Chief Medical Officer is sceptical of predictions from his European and Israeli counterparts that a vaccine could emerge by September or October.
None of these announcements that I've heard give me enough confidence to say that those dates will be met.
In the meantime, asking Australians to stick together by remaining apart. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Retailers unable to make the most of Easter long weekend foot traffic due to restrictions are taking sales online. Lots of big-name brands are offering mammoth deals, but online shoppers are being warned there's often a catch.
Inside, the racks lie untouched, but behind the scenes, sales are pumping.
Definitely online has gone through the roof. There's a lot of orders online.
Giving customers every opportunity to keep spending without leaving the house. Cotton On, Adidas, Maya and Jacuba are among many big-name stores forced to close their doors. But online, they're not holding back, offering huge savings, some up to 70% off. But experts warn not to be blinded by the stellar sales.
It's easy to fall into a trap where perhaps it's not easy enough to return an item, you can't try on items, and also just making sure you check those those returns policies that you are able to exchange and whether it's going to cost you to do that.
And when you're not actually coming out to the stores themselves, you risk becoming addicted to the allure of buying online, spending too much on things you simply don't need or wouldn't have otherwise bought.
The return rates of purchases online are 3 times greater than that which is bought in store.
Rosie Barnett, 7 News.
Next time you make a Macca's run, you may find a few essential items are now on the menu. The fast food chain is rolling out cartons of eggs and various types of milk through drive-through and takeaway. Customers can also have the items delivered to their door. English muffins and bread rolls are also on the list. There's a new twist in the Julian Assange saga. The WikiLeaks founder secretly fathered 2 children with his lawyer while holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy. His partner, Stella Morris, says they met in 2011 when she started working on his case. They began a relationship 4 years later and had Gabriel in 2017. Their second son, Max, was born in 2019. Apparently, authorities had no idea the children existed.
I feel like Julian's life might be coming to an end. It's been 10 years, 9 years, no, 10 years of breaking someone down.
Assange was jailed for 50 weeks in the UK pending extradition to the United States. The leader of the Christchurch mosque, targeted by an Australian gunman, says he believes Brenton Tarrant pretended to pray with worshippers in the weeks before his March attack. The Imam says he was even
when they
hugged.
showed this nameless person in the TV, people actually realized that he came here at least 3 times. And I have around 5 people who met him in this mosque, who talked to him, and he pretended that he is Muslim, and he came and he prayed in the mosque.
Tarrant has pleaded guilty to 51 charges of murder. If you're struggling to cope with the COVID-19 lockdown, we have some tips tonight from some isolation experts. They're in permanent lockdown in Antarctica, not because of coronavirus, but that's what they always do.
A die-hard winter team of 24 Aussies at Davis Station are about to endure long, dark months on the world's coldest, windiest continent.
Whilst we chose to be isolated down here for winter, you back at home have had it forced upon you.
So they're sharing their lockdown tips with loved ones back home.
Remember, get outside and smell the roses. This is plastic, but you get the idea.
The virus hasn't reached Antarctica thanks to early travel and quarantine crackdowns.
It would probably be quite devastating. There's no possibility of evacuation.
It's very different scenery, but exercise is a priority. Comfort snacks
Crunchies, picnics
are more important than personal grooming.
A diesel mechanic by the name of Dylan Hill is actually doing my hair at the moment, and I'm returning the favour for him.
But coping strategies are vital.
Flexibility, adaptability, resilience are really important as well. Being nice to everyone, making sure that you're trying to get along.
They know it could still be bleak beyond winter.
There's a genuine concern from down here that we may come home to a completely different world.
Christy Cooper, 7 News.
A home blown apart and a family's narrow escape. Plus, how about a new career in cybersecurity? There's plenty of work. Up next, the moment rescue crews are confronted with utter destruction. And a touch of Hollywood as Theatre Down Under goes online.
With new facts coming to light every hour.
Breaking news tonight. Infection rates are continuing to slow.
Every night, the latest updates you.
This is the number that worries the government most.
Breaking down what you need to know.
Are you confident that the money is flowing through to the people who need it?
Get the latest from 7 News every night.
With McDelivery, Macca's comes to you. With contact-free options, you can enjoy all your Macca's favourites, delivered to you via the Uber Eats app and Deliveroo.
Bread is a part of life, so why not make life poppier, crustier, pumpkinier, down to the very last crumb. Abbott's Village Bakery. Every bit better.
ornamental side pipes. Incredibly shiny rims, glitter-dusted grille, and wood sculpture. You'll find none of this on the new Skoda Kodiaq RS. With a bi-turbocharged engine that packs a serious punch, this is performance that's not for show. Skoda, simply clever.
With Apple CarPlay and voice command, the Hyundai Tucson is made for it.
Siri, find me a tent.
Even if you're not.
Ready for any challenge. Battery power, made by Still. Only from your local Still dealer.
If you've found yourself out of work, the next few months might be an opportunity to learn new skills for a career change. One university is now offering scholarships for a course on cybersecurity, an industry where there are plenty of jobs going.
Work has dried up for Alex Dance, who until recently ran a marketing business.
And coronavirus came in and everybody said, we're cutting marketing, and so the money went to virtually nothing.
The 49-year-old has mouths to feed, so he's changing tack, going back to school to upskill in data science and cybersecurity.
There was certainly a matter of weeks where you're going, oh, what do I do? And then when I kind of thought about this option, I thought this makes perfect sense because it's a kind of full-time course, so I'll be really busy.
Hopefully setting him up for success in a high-demand field where jobs have surged 17% in the past few weeks.
And Australia doesn't have enough people in this area, so we need to train them rapidly. Protecting digital assets is more important than ever. With people working remotely from home, that creates new threats and new risks and exposures.
The 3-month course costs $17,500. For people who've lost 30% or more of their income, scholarships are available. For over 50s, the scholarship is 90%. Those in their 40s, it drops to half. And for the under 40s, there's a 25% reduction in fees.
And at the end of it, I'll come out with something that's super useful. So I'm feeling very positive about the next 3 months.
Agility, an important skill to have in these uncertain times. Jessica Ridley, 7 News.
A family has survived after an explosion caused their Sydney home to collapse. 2 older people had to be rescued. A father and 2 children, aged 8 and 12, were treated for burns and taken to hospital. So far, the cause of the explosion is unknown. The world's first ever live theatre performance beamed across the globe from a small production studio has received rave reviews. Those behind the project say with the virus lockdown, these types of shows could keep their industry alive.
4 actors in 4 cities across 2 continents. Live theatre reinvented in a world first.
Drop the knife, treat.
The creative industry's forced to do what they do best and get creative. Sydney company Redline Productions taking Broadway show Orphans and one of its famous actors from the stage to the screen.
It was an ambitious thing to take to him, but that everyone in the world is in this position at the moment, it just felt right.
Featuring Hollywood actor Alec Baldwin in his Hamptons living room.
First thing you do, you kidnap a man. First thing you do is frisk him.
The others in Sydney, Melbourne and New York. Switched live by Sydney production company Canvas Collective to a global audience of almost 6,000.
The sky's the limit with something like this. There is no rule book. I mean, we've had to sort of really build the infrastructure from the ground up.
It isn't just theatre under threat, but the entire cultural and creative industries and its 650,000 professional artists and specialist workers. Many of them are casuals and aren't expected to be eligible for the government subsidies.
Majority of our industry actually fall through the cracks. We just want our unique employment parameters acknowledged.
Amber Laidler, 7 News.
Now, here's a way to beat isolation boredom we don't recommend. 3-time Ironman triathlon world champion John Frodeno decided to complete one at home. He did 3.8 kilometres in his counter-current pool, then 180 Ks on his cycle trainer. He went on to clock up 42.2 Ks on the treadmill while managing to chat with star supporters like Boris Becker.
Wanted to find the ultimate challenge to see who's the king of the athletes.
Okay. The German raised $345,000 over the 8 hours, 33 minutes and 39 seconds it took to complete. As a man who hasn't worked out much lately, that makes me feel very guilty. Sport now.
Feel a bit lazy,
Jackie Felgate and Jack Hawks president Jeff Kennett has hit out again.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. It comes as no surprise. Coming up, hear his thoughts on when the AFL will return. Also, high-stakes footy, the Magpies plan to push through the pain during isolation. Scott McLaughlin tangled up in the IndyCars. See his incredible finish. Dan Ricciardo laps up life in the West, but are the wheels about to come off at Renault? And the Aussie surfer that could be considered the luckiest athlete in isolation.
Next on 7, the Gold Coast Penthouse is revealed.
Good job, Mumsy.
So proud of us.
I love this.
Really sophisticated. This is stunning.
The Gold Coast Penthouse final reveals. House rules coming up next on 7.
These are challenging times. We understand how important it is to keep you, your family and your community up to date with all that's going on. So we're giving you 4 weeks free digital access to news you can trust. Now you can stay connected to breaking news and updates on health, finances and lifestyle information that affects you. Free. Search Herald Sun Offer. When it matters most, we're for you.
Right now at Target, get 20% off toys from these big brands like Lego, Nerf, Barbie, Fisher-Price and more. Now on at Target. Offer ends April 26 in selected stores and online. Conditions apply.
Stan's award-winning series Bloom returns.
Forever is a very long time if it's without the one you love.
The brand new season of the Stan original series Bloom, now streaming only on Stan.
Hi folks, older Aussies and those living with disability are finding it really tough to even get the basics. So IGA set up a home delivery service for locals in need to get their essentials. Register online so IGA can come to you.
A lot has changed over the last few months, but globally, Allianz Group's commitment to serving its 100 million customers around the world hasn't. As part of this global network, Allianz Australia has been supporting our customers through uncertainty and change for over 100 years. So you can rely on us to be here for you now and in the future to ensure what matters most. Because our support doesn't stop here.
He stole his brother's wife. Now he's back for one more thing.
Honey, I think I made a mistake.
Home and Away returns tomorrow.
The Sports Report brought to you by Allianz.
Welcome back. Hawthorn President Jeff Kennett has slammed the NRL's return date and poured cold water on the AFL following suit. Rugby League is scheduled to resume by May 28 and Kennett says it's silly, irresponsible and stupid, urging a calmer approach to decide when footy comes back.
If we can review restrictions in June, the boys can be back there training late June, early July for a start in August, which would allow us to complete another 16 games in the finals before Christmas.
Kennett is part of the AFL War Cabinet formed to steer the game through its greatest crisis. Collingwood midfielder Tom Phillips says the stakes will only be greater when footy resumes, and he believes the Pies have what it takes to endure what, for players, is looming as one of the toughest seasons in history.
Time goes fast in isolation when you're having fun.
Oh, yes.
How long has it been? 3.5 weeks?
Instead of pumping iron, he's lifting chocolate on Easter Sunday before footy is back up and running.
Once we get back, it'll be serious and the whips will be cracking.
Nathan Buckley has knocked critics who think a premiership might not be worth as much as a normal season, and Tom Phillips is singing from the same hymn book.
It's going to be tougher. It's not routine. It's not necessarily structure that we're all used to.
And that means harder circumstances to win the premiership.
I guess the team that ends up on top I think it'll be the greatest challenge of all to get to there in a year like this year, for sure. So I think it's only bigger stakes this year in my head.
While they might only be communicating via video calls, the Collingwood players haven't lost any motivation.
We're just still hungry. It's like you don't want to let up. You don't want to let up the intensity and the way you've been going about the program and the way you compete until you can get that ultimate prize.
But in the meantime, Phillips still has time for his live Instagram chats with teammate Brodie Grundy.
We share, similar humour and look at the world pretty similarly. So he's good.
Tim Hipsley, 7 News.
Easter and Bells Beach go hand in hand, but for the first time in 60 years, there's no surfing. Young Aussie Jack Robinson should be competing at the Rip Curl Pro. Instead, he could be considered the luckiest athlete in isolation.
For a guy that's been riding barrels around the world and been dubbed the next big thing since his early teens, lockdown could have been a special form of torture.
Honestly, being in lockdown in Western Australia, it doesn't really feel like being in lockdown.
Especially if you're Jack Robinson and live at Margaret River, just a short drone flight upstream from one of the world's dream waves.
Typical day for me would be waking up in the morning, having some breakfast, then I'll go get my drone ready, fly out through the river, check the waves. If it's not any good, I'll come back.
If it's flat, go fishing.
Yeah, boy.
Or link up with a trainer in Hawaii and perform mind and body bending workouts worthy of an Olympic gymnast. If surf's up, it's playtime for one of the great talents ever to pick up a board. Now 22, we've seen glimpses, but after conquering the grind of the qualifying series and winning the World Cup in Hawaii, the surfing world's been frothing for Robinson's arrival for real on the World Championship Tour. Then COVID-19 intervened.
I'm not worried. I'll be ready whenever it happens. But I'm just happy to be home now, happy to be safe. Yeah, it's a really good time to be home and do homely things.
Why would you ever leave? Matt Carmichael, 7 News.
Scott McLaughlin's busier now than when he's driving supercars, and he hasn't left home. This morning, he was back on the virtual IndyCar circuit, this time in Michigan.
There's a crash coming to green.
Got rammed at the start and rolled, and it was crazy. It became a strategy race after that.
He charged from near the rear of the field, finishing just adrift of Frenchman Simon Pagenaud. After winning the Supercars E-Series opener, McLaughlin's now had a win, a second and a fourth in the iRacing. While Aussie Formula One driver Dan Ricciardo laps up farm life in WA. His Renault team has stood down most staff until the end of May and ordered mass pay cuts. The team didn't say if drivers are affected, but they're applying for assistance from the British government's job retention scheme. And doing a handstand is tough enough without trying to take your tracksuit pants off at the same time. It's much easier, though, if you're the world's best gymnast, as American Simone Biles proved. She can add this achievement to her 19 World Championships and 4 Olympic gold medals. How about that? She is just the best. And it wouldn't be an Easter Monday without footy, and we're not going to let you down. Tomorrow from 7's Footy Vault, an Easter Monday thriller between Geelong and Hawthorn, 2:45 p.m. on 7 Mate. Not to be missed, Mike.
Thanks, Jack. Melina is next with the forecast, and Mel, after a gloomy weekend, it's warming up.
It is, Mike. The middle of the week is looking a lot nicer. I'll have the details next.
Hello, tonight on the latest from 7 News, our leading vaccine hunter reveals a new twist in the race to end restrictions.
And a reason to smile this Sunday night with some truly inspiring Australian stories. Join us tonight at 8:30 on the latest from 7 News.
Next on 7, the Gold Coast Penthouse is revealed.
Good job, Mumsy.
So proud of us.
The final Penthouse reveals are here.
I love this. Really sophisticated. This is stunning.
Who will get their home fully renovated?
You will receive a home renovation.
The Gold Coast Penthouse final reveals. House rules coming up next on 7.
The Melody. It sleeps up to 9. Well, sort of. Makes the perfect hiding spot. And also happens to be a very comfortable queen-size bed. Find your fantastic in-store or online today.
Goodie.
Good, I missed it. Look at it.
Tyre Power is open for business, helping the essential services and the community. Each Tyre Power family business knows how important trust, reliability and safety are right now. So if you need to be on the road, call Tyre Power on 13 21 91.
When a cold disturbs your family's sleep, Vicks Vapor Rub relieves cough, nasal congestion, muscle aches and pains. They sleep, you sleep. Vicks Vapor Rub relieves 4 cough and cold symptoms.
Reason. From the moment we're born, we're conditioned to find it. Why does it feel good to dance? Why are we drawn to the water? We're consumed by a need for explanation. But some things just defy rational sense. When you move beyond what's known and into what's felt, you don't need a reason.
Hello again. It's been a gloomy weekend, but we will be warming up over the next couple of days. The city dipped to 11 degrees overnight and only made it to 15 this afternoon. Outside now in the city, it is sitting on 14 degrees. It was a grey and cloudy Easter Sunday across southern Victoria with just isolated showers over the east of the state. Temperatures were again below the April average. We didn't get above 11 in Ballarat. It was a little warmer in Bendigo, 18 degrees there, and 16 at Traralgon. Taking a look at the satellite, there's a high pressure system that will drift across northern Victoria tonight and Monday, reaching the Tasman Sea by Tuesday. The next cold front will approach the southwest of the state late on Wednesday before crossing the state on Thursday. So this is how it will affect our week. The weather will be quite stable for the next few days. Monday is staying mild with just some light drizzle in the south. Tuesday is dry and it'll be warmer as well as those winds winds shift north to northwesterly. Looking ahead to Wednesday, and it'll be warm and partly cloudy as well with northerly winds. We're not expecting any wet weather until Thursday when that cold front crosses the state. Scattered showers will extend across southern and mountain areas. It will stay warm overnight as well into the start of the day with northerly winds, but a fresh westerly change will move through, bringing a cooler end to the week. Around the nation for tomorrow, partly cloudy and 27 in Brisbane. Sydney is mostly sunny, 22 there. Sunny and 24 in Adelaide, and Perth is partly cloudy, 26. But in Victoria, our inland areas will see some morning fog patches. The south could have isolated light showers or drizzle. That'll mainly be along the coast. It'll be a mostly sunny day across the north and the far west. Everywhere else will be partly cloudy. Temperatures will be cool to mild, mostly in the high teens to low 20s tomorrow. 19 at Bendigo, 18 at Ballarat, and up to 20 in Wodonga. Closer in, it'll be partly cloudy around the suburbs, so we should have some sunny breaks. There is the slight chance of light showers just over the southeastern suburbs there. A little warmer than today with light winds, 19 at Geelong and at Watsonia, 18 at Essendon and Frankston. The city will be partly cloudy as well, dropping to 10 overnight before a top of 18 degrees. Then it's partly cloudy, 23 on Tuesday, 24 degrees on Wednesday, and it stays warm overnight. It won't drop below 19 degrees on Thursday before a top of 24, but a change will move through and we could see some showers. Friday's partly cloudy, then it's a mild end to the week. Mike.
Thanks, Mel. And that's 7 News. We'll have updates later. For now, though, from the 7 News team, have a great night.
Previously on House Rules High Stakes. Our second and final Penthouse challenge hit the ground running. 6 teams.
We do not want to go home.
But only 5